Good. All right, well, good evening, everybody. I would like to call to order the City of Gardner, Kansas, Tuesday, June 27th Planning Commission meeting to order. If everyone will please rise and state the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll now move into roll call, starting on my right.
Brady here.
Mater here.
Austin here.
Roberts here.
Quorum is present. Moving into the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the Planning Commission for study. These items are considered to be routine and will be enacted upon by one motion with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item either from the Planning Commission or from the floor, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. Is there any item any member of the commission would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Any item any member of the public would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Brady with a second by Austin that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with all in favor. Regular agenda, item number 1. Santa Fe Self-Storage Site Plan, SP-17-07. Consider a site plan for the expansion of a personal storage indoor use for Santa Fe Self-Storage located at 1060 through 1070 East Santa Fe Street. Jim Long, Alan Brandrews, applicant, Santa Fe Storage LLC, property owner of record. We have a presentation this evening.
Ms. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Michelle Cricks, planner with the City of Gardner, and this evening we will be discussing Site Plan 1707 for Santa Fe Self-Storage located at 1060 East Santa Fe and currently 1070 East Santa Fe Street. Currently, the site is comprised of two lots. One of those lots is currently used as a self-storage facility, which presently has two buildings for 75,110 square feet on the lot. The other lot is currently unplatted and vacant. Earlier this year, a final plat was approved to combine the two lots into a single lot. However, as of this evening, that final plat has not been recorded. Staff has communicated that the final plat must be filed and recorded with Johnson County before a building permit can be issued if this case has approved. Two current buildings, which are on the site plan labeled as buildings A and B, are oriented north to south adjacent to one another, and access to those buildings is by a 25-foot wide drive around the site. Access into the site is by an existing drive from East Santa Fe, and the site is currently zoned C3, which is a heavy commercial district in which personal storage outdoor use is permitted. The applicant is proposing to construct two additional single-story buildings to expand the self-storage facility, which will add an additional 24,124 square feet to the site, bringing the site to 99,235 square feet of total floor area and a site coverage of 62,124 square feet. The new buildings, which are labeled C and D on the site plan, are proposed to be rectangular-shaped buildings and also oriented north to south. A new 25-foot drive is proposed around building C and D. Additionally, on the site plan in front of you, located at the northeast corner of the lot, a new detention pond is proposed to address additional stormwater runoff. The site is surrounded by various land uses. To the north of the site is the BNSF Railroad right-of-way and currently does not have a zoning designation on it. To the east of the site is a combination of planned restricted industrial and heavy commercial and is used for both as a self-storage facility and single-family residential. To the south is zoned a combination of two-family residential, heavy commercial, and a mobile home park, and is currently vacant land used for agricultural purposes. And finally, to the west is zoned heavy commercial and is used as a self-storage facility as well. So in front of you here is a photograph of the site taken from south of East Santa Fe Street of one of the existing storage facilities and the vacant lot. The photo that's just popped up on the upper right-hand corner is the two existing buildings for the self-storage facility. And this next photograph is that current lot, which was approved earlier this year to be combined in with the existing facility, which is now vacant. After review by staff, it has been determined that the site plan and the building standards does comply with the Gardner Land Development Code. The applicant has provided more than 30% transparency and front entry features for the street-facing facade of Building D. The front entry feature includes aluminum storefront door, forest green awning, and a gable roof line, which a copy of that entry is located at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. The applicant is also proposing an 875 square foot accessory dwelling unit in Building D, which is the building adjacent to East Santa Fe Street. It is not uncommon for self-storage facilities to offer on-site living accommodations for the site manager. Section 17.5.040A of the Gardner Land Development Code allows for, quote, principal uses shall include accessory uses and structures that are clearly incidental and customarily associated with the principal use. It is staff's opinion that the dwelling unit proposed complies with the Gardner Land Development Code. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the site plan 1707 for Santa Fe self-storage, subject to the following conditions. Number one, prior to the issuance of a building permit, an excise tax of $9,737.94 shall be paid to the City of Gardner, as conditioned in case of the final plat, FP 1606. And number two, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the final plat, approved on February 20th, 2017, shall be recorded with Johnson County. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Do we have the applicant here this evening?
Yes, I am.
Is there anything you'd like to comment on? If so, please come forward, state your name and address for the public record.
Yeah, I'm Roger Strickland, and I live at 28880 Countryside Road in Weston, Missouri. I have owned the property for the last 12 years, I believe, and originally developed it. This is something we need. We're 98% occupied right now, and there's demand for what we're providing. So I'm fully in accordance with everything that's been said and willing to do it. So I would appreciate your approval.
Great. Thank you. All right. Anything from the commissioners for staff? We do have the applicant here. Pretty straightforward, but any questions?
If condition one is already a condition of the final plat, does it also need to be a condition of this, or would it not already be taken care of under the final plat?
You're saying because it was as conditioned in case FP 1606. Why are we stating it again?
In
Is
case
it
there
just
were
a-
other conditions associated with that final
I'm
plat. I don't
guessing
know if
it's
there
just
were,
to have an additional condition in the site plan, just to make sure it's covered.
It's just to ensure that that original condition from the plat has been met before we can continue.
but.
Okay.
And was that the only condition on that final plat?
Remember.
I don't either.
That was
That's why I
last year.
asked.
I'll jump in here because I did the
Yeah.
final plat. Yeah, that was the only condition. So they
Okay.
were just carried over for checks and balances so that we don't start getting ahead of ourselves.
Sounds good.
Great. Any other questions? If we don't have other questions, I'd entertain a motion on this item.
After review of application SP-17-07, a site plan dated June 15, 2017, for CP 765-00000-001 and CF 231419-2023, reflecting an expansion of Santa Fe self-storage located at 1060 East Santa Fe Street and staff report dated June 27, 2017. I move that we approve the application provided the following conditions are met. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, an excise tax of $9,737.94 shall be paid to the city as conditioned in case FP-16-06, and prior to the issuance of a building permit, the final plat approved on February 20, 2017 shall be recorded with Johnson County.
Second. Second.
We have a motion made by Austin with a second by Roberts that after review of application SP-17-07, a site plan dated June 15th, 2017 for CP 765000000-001 and CF 231419-2023, reflecting an expansion of Santa Fe self-storage located at 1060 East Santa Fe Street. In staff report dated June 27, 2017, the Planning Commission approves the application, provided the following conditions are met. 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, an excise tax of $9,737.94 shall be paid to the city as conditioned in case FP-16-06, and prior to the issuance of a building permit, the final plat approved on February 20, 2017 shall be recorded with Johnson County. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with all in favor. Moving on, item number 2. Capital Improvement Element, CIE. Consider initiation of a comprehensive plan amendment to incorporate the capital improvement element to the comprehensive plan. I believe we have Gons with us this evening for a presentation.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners, and thank you for having me. This evening, there's a proposal to add the capital improvement element known as the CIE to the City of Gardner's comprehensive plan. As you may know, the current comprehensive plan was adopted on July 29, 2014, under resolution number PC-14-02, replacing the previous comp plan known as the Community Development Plan. The capital improvement element is a critical component of a comprehensive plan adopted by a city and summarizes existing and projected needs for capital facilities and services as they relate to growth and development in the community. Within a single document, the projected capital improvement and related costs for utilities, recreation, transportation are compiled with the anticipated dates of the project. These projects are necessary to maintain the existing service levels and anticipate the new capacity requirements associated with population growth, development, annexation, as embodied in the city's comprehensive plan and other master plans. Included within the capital improvement element are schedules showing the long-term and short-term and long-term projects, dates, and costs. These are the 5-year schedule, the 10-year schedule, and the 10+ year schedule. The 5-year schedule should be considered as a subset of the city's 5-year capital improvement plan. The longer-term projects, longer-term projected needs are based on master plans, projected population, anticipated area growth based on the comprehensive plan. In preparing the capital improvement element, updates have been provided to population, recreation, infrastructure elements based on more recent master plans. In the attachment, you will see a memo with a full detail of the projected population for the City of Gardner. Staff recommends integrating this updated information into the appropriate section of the comprehensive plan, such as the community profile, transportation, mobility, community facilities and services, and parks, open space, and environmental feature chapters. The implementation and funding portion of the capital improvement element might be incorporated either as a subsection of the implementation chapter or as a new chapter of the comprehensive plan. The process for amending the comprehensive plan is as follows. First, amendment initiated by the Planning Commission or governing body. Second, notice of a public hearing published in the official city newspaper at least 20 days prior to the public hearing. Third, a public hearing at the Planning Commission with the adoption of the Planning Commission resolution and a recommendation to the governing body to approve the amendment. Fourth, notice to the county and any township affected up to 20 days prior to the action. Fifth, action by the governing body for ordinance. And sixth, publication of said ordinance. Having said that, staff recommends the Planning Commission to initiate a comprehensive plan amendment to incorporate the capital improvement elements to the comprehensive plan.
Great, thank you. Makes sense to me. I enjoyed reading the enclosed attachment. I think it's a good thing. Any questions from the commissioners? We've got Gons with us and staff.
Just a comment to you and others on staff, we appreciate you doing the long-range planning, 5 years, 10 years, 10 years plus, knowing that we'll be at 36,000 people by 2040. So thank you for your advanced planning.
Quite welcome.
Great. If we don't have other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Okay, good. I make a motion to initiate a comprehensive plan amendment regarding the capital improvement element to the comprehensive plan.
Second.
We have a motion made by Roberts with a second by Brady that the Planning Commission initiate a comprehensive plan amendment regarding the capital improvement element to the comprehensive plan. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with all in favor.
Thank you.
All right. Regular agenda item number 3, Capital Improvement Plan, CIP. Consider the 2018-2022 Capital Improvement Plan, CIP, to find that it is in general conformance with the comprehensive plan. Good evening, Matt.
Good evening. Tonight's presentation on the CIP is broken down into 3 different components. I'll give a quick overview on the capital improvement program, go over the conformance report, and then give you staff's recommendation. The reason we do this every year is, according to Kansas statutes, the Planning Commission has to review our CIP to make sure it's in conformance with the comprehensive plan. This can be done on a project-by-project basis or a CIP as a whole. But then when we do CIP, there's 4 major components. We have to identify the needs in the community that involve staff expertise, our master plans, and feedback from citizens. And they have to develop a scope for each of those projects. And then we need to determine the cost of those projects, not only the upfront capital costs, but also how does it impact our operational budgets going forward. Then we have to prioritize those capital requests, because generally there's a lot more needs than we have actually funding to fund those projects. And then for the CIP, we also have to develop a financing strategy. Essentially, we have to identify funding sources, look for grants, and kind of see our fund balances and our cash flow to make sure, should we use cash or should we issue debt for those projects? And when we issue debt, we have to look at what's the useful life of those assets. To help avoid confusion, when we say capital budget, that's generally a 1-year appropriated budget. For example, right now we're working on the 2018 capital budget. The capital improvement program is a 5-year look. It's rather common in Kansas to give us some insight about what's going to come up in the next couple of years. And now we're having the capital improvement element, which kind of looks at 10 years plus or 20 years. And that's more focused on major growth trends like population, what are we going to look like in 20 years from now. CIE focuses more on projects that affect level of service. So there might actually be a couple projects in CIP that aren't in CIE, even though they generally overlap. For example, like a utility equipment piece that's capital equipment might be a couple $100,000, but it's more just replacing capital equipment. It's not really affecting level of service. And historically, what we've done in the city, at least the last couple of years I've been here, is to help you with the conformance analysis, is we look at the comprehensive plan's general goals. Because in the past, our comprehensive plan didn't really identify a lot of individual projects. So what we did is we looked at all of our capital projects that we're requesting, and then see what kind of goals do they align with. And the ones we found were high quality and dependable public services and facilities, maintain safe and efficient transportation network, balanced park system that supports connectivity, support growth, sustainability, and protection of the natural environment. Under the high quality and dependable public services and facilities, one thing that we're going to be doing is a fiber connection between the city and the county. There's some issues right now with basically the police department accessing certain IT software and just things they need to do through the computer, and the connection isn't the greatest right now for iLeads, which they'll still be switching over to Niche, another program, but this fiber connection will help make sure they have good access to those files. And then I put an asterisk by the new police and justice center. We're waiting for direction from the community if this needs to be in the budget or not. They're having a vote in August. And there's actually a town hall tomorrow at 6:30 at the senior center. So that'll be, if it's in the budget, it'll be directed by the citizens with their voting. And then Dogwood Electric Energy Capacity is a major project that we have coming up. John's could explain it better, but we're going to have to look at where we're getting our capacity from. That's the alternative that we're looking at currently. And there's actually a lot of projects that fall under this category. I'm not going to list all of them, but there's a lot of basically maintenance for facilities and equipment, and also adding system redundancy. So if a power line goes out, you don't lose service because there's redundancy in the system. Then also maintaining a safe and efficient transportation network. These are the projects we have highlighted for the next 5 years. A lot of them are in our CARS grant funding application that we sent out to the county. And for balanced park system, Quail Meadows is actually pushed back a year. It was originally a 2017 project. We didn't get the grant funds for that, so it got pushed back a year. And West Fork, we got part of the funding from the county, so we're going to start on that trail, and then we're going to continue on in 2018 when we get additional funds. St. John's is more of a future project, supporting growth. And some of these projects could go under multiple categories. Obviously, I-35 and Gardner Road Interchange is a safety and transportation efficiency project as well, but it's also going to open up a lot of growth. We have Project 123, an industrial project that we have an MOU for earlier this year or last year, I believe. And then an interconnection of West Star, interconnection of Water One, and self-lift storage tank construction. Those are all capacity related. We also have a lot of sewer projects that were identified in our recent master plan. Those will be driven by development as it happens in those areas. For sustainability, we have a stormwater project for Jamestown Open Channel. Then, unfortunately, we didn't get funding to dredge Gardner Lake from the state, but we still have to move forward with some improvements to the actual spillway to avoid further deterioration of the dam. That kind of wraps up the projects that we have in the 5-year CIP. Staff recommends the Planning Commission entertain a motion to find the proposed 2018 through 2022 CIP in general conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Great, thanks, Matt. Anybody have questions for Matt or staff? I enjoy looking at the list of projects and.
I'm assuming if this is approved, this will go to the governing body next month for their final approval.
It will be going into the budget process, so it will be in the budget document that they approve. And the actual cash expenditures for 2018 will be in the budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just saying it fits within the comp plan.
Right.
Yeah. Questions? Tori or Brad? If we don't have questions, I'd entertain a motion on item number 3.
I'll take this one. The Planning Commission finds that the 2018 to 2022 capital improvement program is in general conformance with the Gardner Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
We have a motion made by Brady with a second by Austin that the Planning Commission finds that the 2018 through 2022 capital improvement program is in general conformance with the Gardner Comprehensive Plan. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with all in favor. Thanks, Matt. All right, item number 4, we've got a couple. We're going to take them in chunks, but I'll go ahead and introduce the Land Development Code text amendments. Hold a public hearing and consider the following text amendments to the Land Development Code. We have item A, TA 16-10, text amendments to various chapters regarding the addition of a utility building and infrastructure use category. We have item B, TA 16-13, text amendments to section 17.05 regarding outdoor sales heavy use standards. And we have item C, TA 17-01, text amendment to section 17.08.040 regarding screening of mechanical equipment in residential districts. So we'll have staff present each item in order, and we'll open and close the public hearing on each item. So that way, if anyone wants to speak on a particular item, we know exactly which one that is. So let's start with item A, TA-16-10, presentation.
Good evening, Ms. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. This evening, I'm discussing case TA 1610, an amendment to the Gardner Land Development Code pertaining to public utility uses and aviation facilities. Currently, the Gardner Land Development Code does not address public utility facilities and aviation facilities, and staff is proposing some following information to guide development in the future. Although this case was originally scheduled for a public hearing and recommendation this evening, staff is requesting the Planning Commission continue the recommendation to the July 25th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting to allow staff additional time to further research aspects of this text amendment. So text amendments regarding the public utilities have not changed since we last discussed it in May, at the May 25th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting. This evening, aviation facilities have been included, which was approved by the Planning Commission at the May meeting for staff to initiate a text amendment. So some of the things, just to kind of refresh, what we talked about last time was amending section 17.05.020, the general zoning standards allowing public utility facilities and transportation facilities, multiple principal buildings on the site. So we've added the transportation into this language, or proposed to add transportation into this language. Amending section 17.05.030, which are the permitted uses table, to include major and minor public utility facilities as either permitted or conditionally allowed in residential and non-residential districts, subject to specific standards, limitations, and performance criteria. You'll notice on the chart in front of you that aviation facilities have also been included as a conditionally approved use in the agricultural district. Amending section 17.05.030, description of uses, to include a description of both minor public utility facility, a major public utility facility, and an aviation facility. As noted in the staff report, a minor public utility facility is a more locally scaled facility for electricity, water, or other utilities, which also include limited office use where permitted in Table 5.2. A major public utility facility is proposed to be a large-scale facility and geared more regionally based, which would service multiple communities. A major public utility facility may also include general office or large office where allowed in Table 5.2. A description for aviation facility is also proposed to be included as any land or water designated, set aside, or used for the landing and takeoff of aircraft, including facilities for housing and maintenance of aircraft and accessory airport activities. Next section proposed for amending is section 17.05.050 as the specific use standards for public utility facilities. Some additional standards do include as you may recall, including a minimum setback of 50 feet from residentially zoned property, allowing a public utility facility to exceed the maximum height limit provided additional setback from property lines to minimize visual impact, adding a buffering requirement as provided in the Gardner Municipal Code 17.08.030B, and an option for a fence. Sorry about that. Allowing a fence around the entire perimeter site, a minimum fence height of 6 feet in height, and the use of approved materials such as the use of wrought iron or aluminum simulating wrought iron adjacent to the public right-of-way or residential districts. Specific materials are prohibited, such as razor wire and barbed wire. Staff considered the Planning Commission's concerns regarding fencing materials for public utility facilities adjacent to residential districts. After careful consideration, it is staff's opinion fencing materials should be more restrictive for utilities adjacent to residential to minimize the visual impact and to preserve residential property values with high-quality materials. So I put up on the screen a couple of examples. The first one is a public utility facility located at East Shawnee and Sycamore, just located about a block and a half north of Main Street. You can see here on the photograph on the left side of your screen that the use of a regular chain link fence with the barbed wire on top. The property on the right that is not enclosed within the chain link fence is actually a residential home. So there is a residential home adjacent to the public utility. On the next screen is I believe it's a water district or a water facility located on South Gardner Road north of 167th Street. And you'll notice here where we've got the wrought iron, the aluminum, which kind of simulates more of a wrought iron look. And finally, staff is proposing to include a new non-residential building type for the agricultural district, which is the general industrial building type. It is staff's opinion additional standards are needed for aviation facilities and is requesting additional time to consider. Due to this issue, staff is requesting the Planning Commission continue the public hearing and recommendation of this text amendment to the July 25th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Well, this was originally advertised as a public hearing item, and the Planning Commission has been asked to continue. I think we'll still go ahead and hold the public hearing because it was advertised. So if there's any member of the public that would like to come forward and speak, now's your time. Please state your name and address for the public record and be heard.
Good evening. I'm Cam Blazer, 12121 Norwood, Leawood, Kansas. I'm representing the VA-16, the Vintage Aircraft Group out at Gardner Airport. Did anyone make our fly-in this last weekend?
I drove by it several times, and it looked like you guys had a great turnout.
And we brought in about 400 people and 61 aircraft. And so far this year, we've flown 90 Young Eagles, which is a free flight for any child 8 to 18 to acquaint them with aviation. And so kind of proud of that. We think we're doing our good job.
Absolutely.
We think we have the best building on Gardner Airport. Back in 2013, we built the hangar that's there now that we were meeting in yesterday. We have grown to where we've need more room. When we built our first building, we gave you a master plan of what we had envisioned. Working with the city, they required that we have a detention pond for the future roof runoff, which we have built in compliance and accepted. We propose to expand our existing hangar to the south and came to the city, and the Public Works Director got with PEC, your consultant, and figured out that we violated 4 feet into the airspace of the airport, which essentially we went back and redesigned our building to cut that off, make a hip roof to where we complied, added another $12,000 just for that complying. Our membership, we're a 501c3. Getting small donations takes a long time to get another $12,000. We then looked at our master plan, and our master plan also expanded to the west, a addition on the side of our existing building. This is Bob Micah, architect, I'm an engineer, and we're volunteering for the chapter. We have a lot of fun out there. With the $12,000 hurdle that we were trying to get over, went back to the membership and said, hey, would it be all right to expand to the west, complying with our master plan that we have with the city? And everybody agreed, and the benefit of that one is we have future bathroom facilities. We're building the building for it, but we can't put the plumbing in yet until we raise some more money. But with the slow movement of getting new bathroom facilities on the entire airport, they thought that was a wise decision. So we modified our plans for that. You just saw a picture of what we propose. With this new planning thing you're voting on, we worked with the planners, and because we are building a 50% expansion, we've got to start over from scratch and do all the planning again. We've had this master plan in place since 2013. So we would ask that you grant your planning commission a little leeway with this agriculture/airport paragraph to where it would be a little more reasonable. We had your airport manager in the meeting with us, and if we comply with it as it is, then all the hangars in the future that face the road's got to have 30% glass, which is ridiculous for an airport, frankly. So your consideration in giving the planning group a little leeway, we would appreciate. We think we're a good neighbor. We want to continue being a good neighbor, and thank you for allowing us comment.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate the comment. Any other member of the public like to speak? Since this was a formal public hearing, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion to close the public hearing made by Austin with a second by Brady. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Oh, anyone opposed? No. Okay. Everyone agrees that we close the public hearing. Okay, so it sounds like staff is requesting a continuance to the next meeting to do some additional investigation and work on the verbiage. Anybody from the commission have comments for staff based on what's presented?
I guess I'm not entirely clear. Why are we continuing to next month? What are we looking for in addition?
The proposed building does have transparency requirements and landscape buffering requirements that we would like to look into, and as well as other building types allowed, just to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the airport, that the zoning code makes sense when they are coming in to expand the facility, that we're not trying to enforce, say, trees when they don't want trees where can attract birds, which is then dangerous to aircraft. So we want to make sure that we have a good conversation with the airport as well as the Director of Public Works and make sure all those needs are being met.
So we're looking at adding additional sections related to conditions for aircraft use, if I'm understanding correctly.
Maybe more,
So
more geared towards
wouldn't,
airport.
I guess I don't understand why that needs to be a part of this change and not its own piece next month. Do we really need to go through all of this for a third month in a row?
It's only going to be on the aviation portion. And I guess this is just, if I'm understanding right, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but this is just to give them more time to make sure that the text amendments that are being proposed, really meet with what is truly, in the aviation's best interest. It sounds like a collaboration meeting needs to, occur to make sure the right verbiage is brought before the planning commission so we get it right the first time. That's my interpretation. I might be wrong, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, Kelly?
Well, we talked about splitting
Yeah.
these amendments so we could move forward with the utility and wait on the aviation, but it was all under one case number, so we didn't want to get complicated by, taking action on a portion of the case and not the entire case. And so what we're trying to do is figure out the best way to regulate aviation facilities in our zoning ordinance, or in the land development code, and we just need more time to bring an amendment forward to you.
Okay, I guess I don't see anything in these changes that would impact the types of buildings or what you could do at the airport other than allowing general industrial building types in agricultural zoning districts. Really, the only thing that I'm seeing is that we're adding language that allows aviation facilities to occur in agricultural districts under a conditional use permit, and we're defining what an aviation facility is. I don't see anything in this language that really, maybe I'm missing
You're
something that
saying
impacts
there are
anything.
two different issues. One is, excuse me, that, let's go ahead and take action on this tonight, and if we've got a separate situation with the Gardner Airport coming down the pike, is what they want to do, you'd bring that to us.
Right.
Right, they haven't submitted their site plan yet.
Okay. So, the gentleman that was here, are they both here? Both here. So, do you see anything in this proposal that is going to inhibit what you want to do down the road?
Well, we were a little frustrated because planning was trying to find some aviation, and there was nothing in the code aviation and nothing in the code for museum. So those were the two classifications we fit under. We would like not to be held to the industrial thing, and I don't think you want to be with 30% windows in every hangar that faces the road in the future. We don't want to be held to anything you're not willing to live with yourself. So,
Understood.
I guess, yeah, go ahead, Tim, you have something else?
No, Larry?
Oh, Larry, yeah, go ahead.
Not to muddy the waters, but basically what we have is in our current code, as you've stipulated, Brad, is we don't have current ability to really review their application. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to put something in place here preliminarily that would allow us to at least move that forward in the review process. The building type that we currently have, which would be the closest one that we have to current hangar facilities, is the industrial building type. However, the setbacks and the landscaping and the glass and a whole lot of other things that we require in that building designation really aren't applicable to the construction of hangars.
Right.
What we were wanting to do was have some time to reach out to other airports who already have this stuff in place, get the appropriate type of language, be able to insert it into this particular part of the process and then have it all adopted at one time so that we didn't have to come back again and change something that's already in the process of being changed, trying to make it cleaner for one-step process for the city council to look at it as it gets moved forward to them. So that's the reason for the request for the delay, and that's what our hope for result will be, is in this particular aspect is we'll be able to bring you real current building information usages into this particular aspect, because we currently don't have anything in the code that relates correctly to what they want to do.
Right. Agree.
Basically, it's a front and back. The code takes the street side as the front entrance, and we had one emergency exit door, and they wanted to make it big and fancy, and then glass, and it's the only one on the airport that's that way. And for an airport, the hangar door is the front entrance, so it's a confusion. And
Right.
they're caught on a dilemma, between the two. We just ask that you give them a little discretion to come up with something logical.
Yep.
And one other thing, we're trying to get our site plan together, and there's, no ordinance to put the site plan to make sure that we comply with whatever it is we've got to comply with. So that's, it's
Right.
chicken, this is a classic chicken and egg kind of a
Right,
thing,
yeah.
so.
Absolutely.
And by the way, your staff has been very, very helpful too.
Awesome. They are pretty
Good.
fantastic, I think. That kind of help you guys understand. I think that makes sense. I'd like to, allow
We
more
look at
time.
tabling this then?
I believe we're
or-
going to
Well,
continue
We know anything
it.
about the aviation?
Well, we're just taking them one at a time because we're going to have presentations on B and C, and we have to do the public hearing in each
Yeah,
one.
but I-
Each one requires a motion.
I think the intent will be to table the whole thing so that we don't edit this section this month and then edit the same section next month. And I'll go with that, that's fine. I don't know that that's fine.
Are you
If that's
saying
the-
that
is
you
that
have
the
edits
most-
for you have edits, is that what you're saying? To
Wait,
suggest?
Yeah, if,
No,
if there's any
that'll be
suggestions,
another
we'll-
question, but
she'll take them
I was
out,
just
right?
saying that the reason why we're not just doing this without the aviation piece is because we don't want to make amendments to the same section 2 months in a row.
Well, I think if you have any comments already, I'm pretty sure you guys want to hear our comments tonight to make
Right.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that what you're asking?
No,
Okay, sorry.
no, I was trying to respond to Commissioner Brady's question. We'll go on to my edit.
Yeah, any edit, yes, let's go on to edits.
And
Edits.
I think it's
As long as we're talking
the
about
only
item
one
A.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, as long as it's item A. Let's talk about edits and then we can, yeah.
And it's the fence issue, fence materials issue.
What page are you going to be on?
We're
Be
on
on 5. Or-
section Z4C1 and page 4.
You want to talk about the fencing, item 4?
Mhm.
Okay.
And it's same question I brought up last month, and I appreciate you looking into it further. But I honestly, I still don't understand why we would hold a utility company to a higher standard than the adjacent residential properties. I understand you want the fence to look nice, but a stone fence, a wood fence, all of those can look nice, and I don't understand why property values would go down if you are able to see through the fence rather than having an opaque fence. I mean, obviously from the pictures that you showed, the older chain link with barbed wire on top is not nearly as attractive as the wrought iron fence was. But, and if we want to exclude, I don't even know if we can exclude chain link if we allow it in the residential property. I have a hard time making the requirements for the utility provider more restrictive than the adjacent residential district. If we're trying to keep the property value of the residential district higher, but the residential district can use any type of fencing, I struggle with that. I'm about keeping requirements and standards the same.
I guess I read that as chain link is allowed.
According to 4C1, fencing adjacent to the public right-of-way and residentially zoned property shall be
Oh, I see.
wrought
You're
iron.
just talking about specific to the residential.
And so if a residential property can have a wooden fence or a stone fence or a chain link fence and be next to the utility company, but the utility company can't have any of those types of fences because they're next to residential, I struggle with that.
Other opinions?
You do have your utilities director here, if you'd like to ask him any questions.
Yes, we do.
I mean, I guess my question is the same as it was last month, or my argument. I appreciate you considering it, but the arguments that you provided against or to support holding them to a higher standard hasn't swayed my opinion. So I don't know if there's more we can talk about or if there's something else that I'm missing, but
I'd rather them be held to a higher standard. That's just my perspective. Because I can go either way. The barbed wire is horrible. That's staying in there.
well, that's prohibited
But
now
I
anyway.
guess why not make it look a little nicer, because it's already a big tube in the middle of a piece of land. I guess maybe add a little something more stimulating, visually appealing if I live next door to it. But then I can also understand, hey, a wood fence looks just as nice. So
Well, what is
I
the
can go either
intention
way.
of 4CI? Why is that in there? What's the goal?
just, I don't know. I don't remember the original intention.
Is it for aesthetics?
It is for aesthetics.
Okay,
It's to
well,
reduce
I
the
think
visual
it's-
impact of a public utility, along with the landscape buffering would kind of reduce that visual impact from a residential district and from the public right-of-way, which I know the public right-of-way isn't what's the concern is, but it's to hold them to more of a commercial use to kind of more of a higher standard against the adjacent residential.
I guess another question along those lines, if we're trying to uphold aesthetics and prevent visual pollution from the utility into other spaces, would a stone fence that you can't see through not provide better screening?
Typically, that would be much more expensive. So I was thinking of, so say a utility chose a aluminum wrought iron fence, it's less expensive, and actually if there's damage to it, it's easier to maintenance. They can take a small section apart by, say, a 7-foot section and just replace that 7-foot section. So there's another kind of reasoning behind it.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but what you said was if a utility company chose, and what we're doing in this language is dictating specifically what they're going to use. We're not giving them options. And so that's my rub. That's the issue that I have.
Tori, do you have any suggestions, or Tim? You guys have more comments?
I'm okay with it, not unless you would want to add an and/or with a stone fencing, or I'm not sure what, Brad, what you're looking for. You just want the consistency. Yeah, I see what you're saying. The aesthetics piece, honestly, I'll just play my cards. I have no problem with it. You know, we are in Johnson County. I like when I drive around town and look at a right of way, we've got nice fencing. And the city's not paying for it, the owner is. And they don't want to put up the nicer fencing, they don't have to build there then. Larry?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Larry. We're having a conversation.
That's quite all right. I don't think staff has an issue with having options for commercial or industrial fencing. I think what we're trying to do is live with the reality of what commercial people generally want to do, which is spend as little as money as possible. But that being said, in our code, we do have fencing requirements and fencing limitations for residential. For example, we don't allow chain link fence in the front yard, and we limit the side yards to 4 feet. We have picket fences limited to a certain size. We limit the backyard fencing to, if it's a security fencing, to 6 feet. So, I mean, we have other parameters within that. When you get into commercial and industrial areas, or public utilities, such as our water plants and our sewer plants and so forth, we're more concerned with security than aesthetics. But by the same token, the city does have a responsibility in those residential areas that, for example, our substations, our houses go out and build around them. We're not going to go move a substation because of that. So the premise is to try and disguise them as best possible at ground level, at least, because they extend higher than a fence would normally occur anyway. You're going to see them, but to make them as palatable as possible is the concept. So if you know, your concept is to treat them the same as residential, I don't think we can really do that. But if we can give them the same options as residential as far as materials, I don't think there's a problem with that, as long as the materials, they're going to select materials that are secure. Vinyl fencing would not be very secure for a public utility. So it's going to be chain link or wrought iron or stone or something else. Wooden fencing is really not very secure either. And it's very high maintenance, so they're looking for things they don't have to do a lot of maintenance to. So I think really commercial people really aren't too upset with chain link or wrought iron or whatever. And they might enjoy having other options. I'm just not sure that by giving them the option to use vinyl that they would ever use it, if that helps anyway. So
Yeah. And I agree with that. They're going to make their decisions based on price and their need. And I guess from what you were just saying there, to me, in a residential district, if we're not allowing chain link fence over 4 feet, then that would also apply to this facility, so they couldn't use chain link because we require them to have at least a 6-foot tall fence. So that would push them into the wrought iron or the stone or some other material. I just don't, again, I don't know that we need to define you shall provide wrought iron. But if I'm the only one that thinks that, then I'm the only one that thinks that.
It's
So
out there for comment. Tori?
Well, you know, I kind of like what Brad's saying. I like that they could have the option, because in my mind, wrought iron, while it looks nice, it's really not. You can see through it. You can see everything, and
It's true.
I'd probably rather have more like I'd rather have something that you couldn't. I mean, now you're going to see the stuff at the top, but I don't know. I feel like I'd like maybe to have the options that Brad was talking about.
And maybe we need, if we want to change the verbiage, you know, maybe we do make it dependent upon those materials allowed in the adjacent land uses, so that we don't just say you have to have a fence and you can use any of these things, including chain link or vinyl coated chain link or any of those, you know.
To make it consistent with the surroundings.
Yeah, so if the intent is to protect the residential neighborhood look, I'm all for that. But I don't want to be more restrictive on this than I am on the rest of that residential neighborhood. And So I'm not exactly sure what the language is to go in there. But if we wanted to add something about it matching the requirements of the adjacent properties or zones, or if we're adjacent to residential, then you can't use chain link because of this other section or something along those lines, I would be more agreeable to that.
So I guess maybe as they'll, if we vote to continue, maybe have staff take a look at making the, I understand what you're saying, making the fencing like compatible with what's in that residential neighborhood or whatever the zoning is, and not make it shall be wrought iron or aluminum simulating wrought iron. Make it an option, but not a shall be.
Yeah.
Okay. So, seems that's general consensus.
So you're asking staff
Yeah,
to reconsider that language?
Yeah, add some
Yeah.
more flexibility regarding the fencing. I'll go with that as far as consensus. Okay.
But just to clarify, the standards that if we put them in this section, they will supersede the other section unless we refer to the other section. So it's not that both sections apply. You know, these fencing standards that are specific for utility uses would rule, basically.
Right, and that's why maybe there's additional verbiage needed for those areas adjacent to residential properties or adjacent to other zones, however you want to word that, so that you don't end up with a 6-foot tall chain link fence that's ugly. But I just don't want to specify exactly you shall use wrought iron when that's not the only option. It may be what everybody uses, but
Just so it remains aesthetically, pleasing, looks nice. Yeah, an option. I'll go with the consensus. That's fine. Do you have any other notes, Brad?
nope.
Tori? Tim?
No.
Other notes? Okay, so if we don't have other conversation on item A, we can entertain a motion. I believe general consensus is to continue this to, what's the meeting in July? 25th. So that will need to be in the motion for item 4A, July 25th.
You want to make that now or wait?
Make it now because we have two more and each one will have to be its own action.
I move that we table text amendment TA-16-10 until the July 25th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
The motion made by Austin with a second by Brady that the Planning Commission table TA-16-10, the text amendment, to July 25th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting.
Does that language work in order to
Table
let you
inside.
still make changes?
Versus continue.
Okay.
Okay.
Just want to verify.
Cool. Okay, all right. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries to table item 4A to the July 25th meeting with all in favor. All right, we have two more to go. So now we have item B, TA-1613, being section 17.05.
Boy, that wrought iron looks good in this picture.
Doesn't it? I like the wrought iron. Outdoor sales.
Even with the stuff behind it,
That's
right?
right.
I saw that wooden fence, that looked awesome.
Outdoor sales, heavy use standards. What do we have on this one?
Good evening, Commissioners. Kelly Drake Woodward, Chief Planner. We're actually not just talking about outdoor storage, which you probably know by now. We have proposed amendments to the general use standards, accessory use standards, and specific use standards, dealing with a few topics, which we'll go over. Starting with the use table. So the idea is to kind of revamp the outdoor sales limited to be for, say, sidewalk sales, permanent display of things on the sidewalk. So that would be an accessory use subject to accessory use standards as indicated by the A asterisk in the table. We have recommended deleting the outdoor sales seasonal that currently exists because we think it's better handled as a temporary use for seasonal sales, which we already have. Unless they want to do rotating permanent seasonal sales, and that'll be handled in another category of outdoor sales general. So the changes to outdoor sales general and heavy are just to indicate that there are other standards that apply because we're incorporating standards that were formerly in a different category into those uses, and the same thing with the commercial storage, outdoor minor and major. So is that all clear so far? Okay. Okay, so this is just another way to show this. So I won't go over that again. So we are basically eliminating the accessory use categories for outdoor display areas and outdoor storage areas because we are moving the display area standards into the outdoor sales uses and these outdoor storage area standards into the commercial storage uses. Okay, so beginning with outdoor sales limited, we're proposing these standards to fit the revised intent and description. So a business can have this kind of sidewalk display without obtaining a permit as long as all the standards are met pertaining to sidewalk width, the obstruction-free pedestrian passageway, and non-interference with ingress, egress, and parking. So one thing that I did that's kind of in bold there, if you can see it, is to clarify that this would be on a sidewalk that's abutting the principal building. So they don't just construct a random sidewalk somewhere and think they're going to have permanent sidewalk displays. So I hope that change is okay with you guys. Otherwise, it's the same as what you saw last month. This one, however, has quite a few changes to it. We tried to, take Brad's comments into consideration, and I think he mentioned, do we want this to be just for residential districts or do we want it to be for all districts? So I had a conversation with our code compliance officer, and indeed, she would like to have it apply to all districts so she can keep Gardner looking great. Also, this is just like miscellaneous items, like a blight kind of situation. And you asked about, things like barbecue grills and things like that. So we looked up the property maintenance code standards that relate to things like outdoor play equipment, patio furniture, barbecue grills, dog houses, etc. And those things are already, given a pass per our property maintenance code. So she wouldn't be writing any tickets on those kind of things. And then the building materials section says that outdoor building materials, and it does kind of specify for home and lawn improvement projects that don't require a building permit can be stored outside for 30 days. But we had something in our code previously about it being able to be stored outside as long as it's a period of active construction. She wanted to keep that in there because that can allow her to get things removed faster than 30 days sometimes. So we're recommending it to read like this, so that we would have miscellaneous outdoor storage applying to all districts. In general, all these items would have to be stored inside, except as provided in the property maintenance code or as provided in our outdoor storage sections of land development code. They still would be able to have customary building mechanical systems. That was part of the original language. And so then just a clarification that the outdoor storage of building materials has to take place on the lot upon which that construction's taking place and not some adjacent lot or somewhere else. And it's only to be permitted when they're actively in construction. So I guess, how do you feel about those changes?
That was
I
good.
like them.
Okay. Moving on to accessory uses, subsection K. This was just taking, we had the ability for food and beverage general to be permitted as an accessory use subject to additional standards, but we don't have it currently indicated as such in Table 5.2. So when we eliminated subsection K, we were sort of repurposing it for this. Standards haven't changed. And then moving on to the specific use standards, subsection 8 for outdoor sales. This is just to clarify that outdoor sales, general or heavy, would follow these standards. And so this is the part where we are taking standards 1 through 4 came from the original outdoor display area standards, and standard 5 is from the existing outdoor sales heavy standards about not displaying goods in the right of way. So the example here would be maybe you have a permanent outdoor display area for multiple seasonal rotations of merchandise. And there is a modification there in number 3 from last month's discussion where I think you were concerned that, does it have to be right adjacent to the structure is what it used to say. Now we're saying the display area can be on the same lot, like Orchland's, like has it in the parking lot. So I think we addressed that concern. The rest of the standards, 6 and 7 are from the outdoor sales heavy standards. All we did was clarify we're talking about an outdoor display area. 8 and 9 are from the outdoor display standards. So the reference screening standard in number 8 would indicate that outdoor storage areas are to be screened from streets or adjacent property with dense evergreen vegetation, a decorative opaque wall or fence complementing the architectural details and materials of the building, or it can be screened by architectural features of the building or some combination of all those. So that's just so you know that's what that refers to. Okay, we have a new subsection AA for commercial storage outdoor minor. Standards 1 through 6 are from the existing outdoor storage area standards. Per last month's discussion in number 1, we're providing for front setback situation in circumstances where there's actually no building on site if it's just storage. So they would just have to meet the setback for one of the permitted building types in that district. Since we don't have a district-wide setback, so it gets a little complicated, but that's the way we've been handling that. We kept the setback of 50 feet from residential districts, 15, and then we had a question about this last month, of 15 feet from all other non-industrial zoning districts. So what this would actually mean in practice, if it's adjacent to a residential district, they would have to be set back 50 feet. They would have to be set back 15 feet from all other districts, except there would be no required setback if it was an industrial zoning district next to it. So that's what that language would mean. Note that in number 6, no material shall be stacked higher than the screening. So it is actually screened. And that's just because this is the minor, or they're supposed to have small equipment, so it shouldn't be a problem. The same screening standards apply. Okay, and then the other one, the little more intense version of the commercial storage, outdoor major. The same change to number 1 that we just discussed for the minor. Setback 75 feet, 15 feet from other districts except for non-industrial. Okay, and we looked into the stack materials issue, and I talked to our building code people. It's highly complicated in the fire code, and it depends on the context and what materials are being stored, and as far as how high it can go. But, you know, that was a good thing for you to bring up because some of our building types, which is what we had before, we said they can be as high as the building type. But some of our building types in the districts where this could happen were like 5 stories tall. Obviously, we don't want cargo containers or something else stacked that tall. So I'm proposing we limit it to 35 feet in height, which is basically the height of the shortest building that's allowed in those districts. If you want it to be shorter even than that, that's something you can talk about. But I did put a provision in there, you know, whether you go with 35 or some other number, I'm proposing that the additional height can be approved for stacked materials. I mean, I can't imagine all the different kind of things somebody would need to stack, but let's say, you know, there's something that's going to be taller. That could happen by conditional use permit, provided the additional foot shall be added to all setbacks for each additional foot of stacked height. So with the conditional use permit, they would have to come to you for review. We have conditional use review criteria that would be in addition to this additional setback standard. And that will allow you to look at the context of what's around it and all those different discretionary issues. So that's something you want to note and discuss potentially. Here's our recommendation. I had to change it from outdoor storage to all these other things that are encompassed in this amendment. But basically, this recommendation is just that you recommend approval to the governing body as presented in the June 27th staff report.
Great.
And thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Since this is a public hearing item, anyone wishing to speak on item 4B, please come forward, state your name and address for the public record and be heard. Not seeing anybody come forward, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Brady, by Brady with a second by Austin that we close the public hearing. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, public hearing is now closed. Questions, comments for staff on item 4B?
I just want to express my appreciation. I really do appreciate the detailed on both the last item that we tabled and this item, going through and explaining how you addressed each of our concerns from the last meeting and how you integrated those into there. That explanation in our report was much appreciated, and I think the new language hits it. So,
Anyone, anything else? I'd agree. So if we don't have questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion for item 4B.
I'll move that the Planning Commission recommends that the governing body approve TA-16-13, a text amendment pertaining to general use standards, accessory use standards pertaining to outdoor display areas, outdoor sales limited, outdoor storage of materials, products, or equipment, outdoor storage, and food and beverage general specific use standards pertaining to outdoor sales and commercial storage as presented in the June 27, 2017 staff report.
Second. We have a motion made by Austin with a second by Roberts that the Planning Commission recommends that the governing body approve TA-16-13, a text amendment pertaining to general use standards, accessory use standards pertaining to outdoor display areas, outdoor sales limited, outdoor storage of materials, products, or equipment, outdoor storage and food and beverage general, specific use standards pertaining to outdoor sales and commercial storage as presented in the June 27, 2017 staff report. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with all in favor. All right, item 4C, TA-17-01. This is the text amendment regarding screening of mechanical equipment in residential districts.
Just like to start by saying that I do think that because you're reading diligently and giving us feedback, we have a better amendment than what we had the first time we brought forward. So I do appreciate you getting involved and not being afraid to speak up and help us with this, because sometimes we just can't think of everything, and that's why you're here. And this might be one of those where you might have some creative ideas. I didn't go all around the city and take pictures of air conditioners. I frankly didn't really have time, but you live here, you've probably seen them. So this all kind of started with residential developers expressing some resistance, and not against screening from the street. They pretty much expect that. It was when we started saying they had to screen it from all adjacent properties that they started getting a little befuddled and saying, well, no one else makes us do that. They said it was inconsistent with nearby jurisdictions. I had time to kind of look at a couple of different ones, and yeah, they exempted detached houses or residential from those things. So let's say they're telling us how it is. Our previous zoning ordinance and design standards did have some conflicting regulations for this type of screening. I'm not sure that we ever actively enforced the standards anyway. You know, when it came right down to issuing the building permits and getting the final inspections, I'm not sure we really made anyone do that screening, except maybe from the street. So I can tell you that sometimes the way people choose to screen things can call attention to those items rather than away from the items or reducing the visual impact. So also, screening methods can sometimes interfere with access to the equipment or with the proper operation of air conditioners, for example. So those are some of the things that we were thinking about. One of the other things to keep in mind is that many times homeowners will later install a privacy fence around their entire backyard or side yard or whatever, and so you can't see these things anyway from adjacent property. Sometimes property owners probably frankly would remove the screening after they settle into the house if they don't want to mow around it or if the plants die or whatever. And frankly, we're not going to, drive around and make sure they keep that up. So this is just a suggestion that we would exempt ground-mounted equipment that are associated with detached house or duplex building types, again, because we can't just say R1 and R2 districts, we have to go by building types, and say that would not require this kind of screening from adjacent property. They would still have to screen this equipment from the street. And then, since we're working on that section anyway, we thought about a couple other things, which is we currently require temporary outdoor storage areas to be screened by vegetation, opaque fence or wall, architectural features, and I wasn't really sure how that could even be accomplished. So we're suggesting that temporary outdoor displays do not have to be screened like that. And then we are recommending you strike the one for utility stations because that will be included in the new section that Michelle presented to you. So I think that's all I have for you.
Okay, great. Since this item is also a public hearing item, we will now open the public hearing. Any member of the public wishing to speak on item 4C, please come forward, state your name and address for the public record, and be heard. Seeing nobody come forward, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this item.
So move.
Second.
A motion made by Brady with a second by Austin that we close the public hearing. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Great. Public hearing is now closed. Questions or comments for staff on this one? If it makes sense. But
Yeah, I've got a couple
yeah,
quick,
go for it.
hopefully quick questions. On page 14, A1, I guess it would be, something that came to mind while you were talking about these changes. How do either roof or wall-mounted satellite dishes play into this for like DirecTV or whoever it is that uses satellite dishes? I'm not sure how you would screen those from adjacent properties. Does that need to be, is the ground-mounted equipment associated, does that need to be any equipment associated, or?
We actually have some accessory use standards for satellite dishes. It says they are supposed to be screened from adjacent residential uses or district by a fence, wall, berm, or landscaping.
Yeah, which makes sense if it's an old style ground mounted satellite dish, but if it's a direct TV mounted to the side of your house or your roof, we don't allow fences that tall.
We just adopted all those new wireless communication facility standards or communication facility for wireless services. I don't have those all memorized, but I'm pretty sure they allow that to happen without screening.
Okay. All right. And then my other question, and maybe this is just, I'm missing something. So on A5, where it says delivery and vehicle service bays, except bays do not need to be screened from adjacent property with the same or more intense zoning. I like that and I understand it, but the way I read that is that they still have to be screened from the street.
That's how I would read that also.
Okay, so all of our service station, vehicle service facilities, Big O Tires, that type of facility can no longer open onto the street? Or
Well, they'd
maybe
have
they
to-
originally couldn't either, but the way I'm reading this, it would mean that they would have to screen the whole side of their building if it opens onto the street, which prevents them from being able to use the garage doors into the service space effectively.
As long as they have the same or more intense zoning, they don't need to be screened. So as long as you have equal type of zoning across the street from Big O, you're fine, is how I'd interpret it, but I'll show that, I'm sure. Kelly's gonna get us the specifics here.
And if that's the intent, I agree with you, that would be fine. I didn't know if we were considering the adjacent properties as being those across the street, or if the street superseded that piece. So.
I would say, well, we have standards for convenience stores and fuel stations that say all automobile servicing and repair activities shall be conducted in an enclosed building, and repair bay entrances shall be oriented toward the rear or side of the property and not the front. So that's, and then it says, if the property has multiple frontages and it's necessary to orient the repair bay entrances toward a public street, the area shall be screened from public view according to those screening standards that you're just talking about. So I would say then they'd be, screening those bays with the vegetation or a fence or something somewhere on the property. It doesn't have to be obviously right in front of the bays, but.
Well, it would have to, basically it requires them to set the building back further so they have enough room to have a driveway entrance in between the screening and still maneuver vehicles into all the service bays, rather than being able to pull into each service bay, which we also have driveway width limits now for any new construction as well, so. Okay, I get it. It doesn't work for our existing service stations, but they also have wider driveways than we permit for new buildings too, so. That's fine. All right, no issue.
Anybody else have comments? Tim?
Ready for a motion?
Yeah? If we don't have anything else, go for it.
The Planning Commission recommends that the governing body approve TA-17-01, a text amendment pertaining to screening standards as presented at the June 27th, 2017 staff report.
Second.
We have a motion made by Brady with a second by Roberts that the Planning Commission recommends that the governing body approve TA-17-01, a text amendment pertaining to screening standards as presented in the June 27, 2017 staff report. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries with all in favor. Great. Thank you, guys. That was a lot of work on those items. Okay, we do have one discussion item, that being the Main Street Corridor Plan update.
I think you all received the presentation that the consultants went over at both the first steering committee meeting and also at the first public meeting. The first public meeting was probably attended by about 60 people. They had them divide themselves into different perspective groups, whether they wanted to look at things from a business perspective or a civic perspective or as a resident or neighborhood perspective. And it was very weird that they were all pretty much equal groups. As far as the division, we couldn't have asked for anything better. They worked for 3 hours, giving input, listening. So there's a lot of information that the consultants prepared on, the basic statistics that they've assembled so far. They're going to refine those and come back with more specific market data as the process goes on. I don't know if you guys got a chance to go through this presentation and if you had any questions about the process or what's going on. They kind of asked everyone to give them an idea of, from their perspective, what are the boundaries of that Main Street corridor, so they kind of know where you might have some gateway kind of features. And so the majority said it was from Center to Moonlight, basically. So that was kind of an interesting thing. They did not feel the Main Street corridor is very safe for pedestrian and bicycle riders, so I'm pretty sure that the consultants will be working on solutions for that. Let's see here. They presented some ideas from some other downtowns that they think are pretty successful. But the main goal of that whole public meeting was to just hear from people on some issues that they had put before them. And what they did is came up with some key goals from our comprehensive plans, which are enhancing economic competitiveness, enhancing quality of life and sense of place, improving corridor function and connectivity, and promoting environmental responsibility. Then they came up with key issues and boiled those down to one category, which is identity, history, and visitors. Another category, which is neighborhood livability. Another one's the community center, and another one is the fairgrounds. So they had, something like 13 questions or something that every one of those groups went through the same questions and then kind of compared responses, or they just shared some of their highlights of what they had talked about. And a lot of the responses from the 3 different perspective groups were much the same. And I think the consultants will be preparing some information for you to highlight those consensus items and those differences. And basically they just kind of picked some topics I think that they needed more input on right now before they go into the charrette. But the 2-day charrette is coming up on July 12th and 13th. When we get that detailed schedule, we'll make sure that you get it. We would, of course, like you to participate in that. They'll be spending time with the steering committee the first day and testing out some ideas that they want to present at the public meeting the next day. They'll be doing interviews, and people can drop in and chat with them about the work that they're actually doing. They're going to be working for those 2 days, so we'll get you more information as it comes closer.
So Kelly, on those common topics, those 4 that were listed, those are the 4 that were consistent amongst all the groups?
No, they had specific questions, like a worksheet of specific questions that they, like where identity and history would kind of mesh with economic competitiveness, they would have a question about that. And where neighborhood livability would connect with quality of life and sense of place, they would have a question about that. So it's those 13 questions, or I guess, 13, because the bottom one is all one question about environmental responsibility. They're comparing their answers to those 13 questions.
Amongst the three groups. That
Right.
was the exercise we did during the town hall was, like Kelly mentioned, splitting up into those three groups, neighborhood, civic, and business. And then our task at hand was to talk about those topics as they intersected with the grid. And then, that feedback was going to be compiled together. And that'll be, I guess, the next step will be to share. It was a really good meeting, and I thought great participation.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it was really good. I was very excited about it.
I think it's really one of the best public meetings I've been to since I've been a planner, so I was really happy with it.
Yeah, they brought polling devices and the questions, and that's always, fun to be interactive, and food,
Good.
pop, good stuff. Yeah, cookies. It was good. So, anyone has questions or comments? Thanks, Kelly, for bringing that update to us. Any other items from staff this evening? All right, if we don't have anything else tonight, I will entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So
I'd
moved.
like to first thank
Oh.
Kelly for, seriously, this little cheat sheet, the memo you put out,
Yep.
I looked at 3 or 4 times during tonight's meeting, so, and if we
Yep.
can just keep building on this,
I put a note, please do
yeah,
not
yeah,
remove.
yeah, leave it right
Yeah.
where it's at.
Chris
As
said,
we
"Please
get
leave
more
this on here. It's
acronyms,
always good to have as a
keep adding
reference."
to the sheet. With that, I move that we adjourn
Okay,
tonight's
you're
meeting.
going to move to adjourn? All right, so we have a motion to adjourn made by Brady.
Second.
A second by Austin that we adjourn for the evening. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting's adjourned with all in favor.